everybody. Welcome back to our radio audience, stations across the nation. Honored to be with you. This is Andrew Colvin, executive producer of the Charlie Kirk Show, and filling in for the one and only Charlie Kirk. We're back with more with Mark W. Smith, author of Disarmed, What the Ukraine War Teaches Americans About the Right to Bear Arms. Now, Mark, I wanted to zero in on something. You said it was just so clear when you said it. You said, guess what? Americans don't want this. You can throw all the tantrums you want, leftists, but Americans do not want to be disarmed. We keep electing these people that have told us that they are going to defend this sacred right that our founders enshrined. And you'll often hear this as well. People don't like democracy or representative democracy, which is a republic, right? That it's muddle-headed. It takes a long time to move anything. Well, that's a good thing, that they can't just strip our rights away. If COVID taught us anything, it's that when they move with quickness, a ton of disasters follow in its wake. What's your thoughts on that, Mark, as we think about this democratic struggle that actually we're winning? Conservatives don't take victory laps very often, especially this day and age, but we are winning this fight. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that the Americans understand that government is not able to protect them. I think there's countless examples of this. And every time there's another so-called mass killing, remember yesterday there was a mass killing with a truck down in Texas too. So it's not just guns. People use all sorts of means to kill other people. And the government is realistically not in a position to protect you most of the time. We got to keep in mind, though, that this is the one cultural issue that the conservatives have been tremendously successful in and are on the mark. But I think there's many reasons for that. One, of course, is that you have a Second Amendment that's actually in the text of the Constitution that says we have the right to keep and bear arms. Then you have a Supreme Court, thanks to President Trump's nominations of three justices. And when people ask me, what has Donald Trump done for the Second Amendment? I say Neil Gorsuch, Amy Coney Barrett, and Brett Kavanaugh, who made up the majority in the Bruen case, that, of course, re-vindicated the right to keep and bear arms just last year. So you have a Second Amendment that's being robustly defended by the courts now, including the Supreme Court. And then as a practical matter, we now have today 27. Let me repeat that number, Andrew. 27 states allow people to carry handguns without a permit because their handgun permit is the fact that they're American citizens. And that is 27 states. That is the majority of the states. And that number just, we just added Nebraska and Florida. So obviously, when it comes to the states, the gun issue is a winning one. And you see where the anti-gun, and I talk about this quite frequently, the anti-gun movement is doubling down in the states that they control all the organs of government. So they're doubling down and going crazy with gun control in New York, California, Oregon, Washington, these places where they control all facets of government. That's where they're making headway. And they're not really making headway on offense. They're just doubling down in the home territories that they control. But they're in retreat all across America because even in those states, a lot of those have already been enjoined or at risk of being enjoined and thwarted by courts that are enforcing the Second Amendment against that massive resistance we're seeing in certain blue states that don't like guns.
Well, you bring up the Supreme Court, and last week, obviously, we saw this massive attack on Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. There's been other attacks on Neil Gorsuch. Then, meanwhile, we find out that Sotomayor is guilty of not recusing herself from Penguin Random House cases in which Penguin Random House was at risk of losing millions and millions of dollars in copyrights. So, I mean, there's this whole battle here. And we always say, don't listen to the noise, get above the noise, what's really going on. And I think you hit it, right on the head. I think it's abortion. I think it's gun rights. I think this attack on the Supreme Court of the United States is about gun rights and abortion. Gun rights and abortion. They want to pack it. They want to delegitimize it. And they want to control it because it's the last thing standing in the way of the left stripping so many of our rights away. Mark, 1 minute, final thoughts.
Well, yes, remember, going all the way back to Greco-Roman times, there are three essential components to being a citizen and not a serf. That is the right to have property, that is the right to vote, and it is the right to have firearms, or I should say the right to have arms to be able to defend yourself. If you don't have those three essential components of being a citizen, the right to arms, the right to property, and the right to vote, you're a serf. The left in America, as far as I can tell, doesn't want us to be citizens, and they certainly want us disarmed. It's a lot easier to bully people when they're disarmed, as we see all across the country, or I should say all across the world. But I should say that the Ukraine thing, as I write about in my book, Disarmed, really does illustrate the importance of an armed citizenry. Because 10 years ago, the Ukrainians had an opportunity to adopt the Second Amendment and give themselves the right to bear arms. They chose not to do that. And now when they're invaded, of course, they're handing out, weapons to the citizens to defend the country. 10 years too late. They were disarmed. They shouldn't have been. And they learned their lesson.
Well said, Mark. Thanks for joining the show. That's Mark W. Smith. More in hour 2. We'll be right back. Libby Emmons.